Hello, this is Wizard Yaowen and Will Love Light and Magic. And today, got a cool episode. We've got the chakras upon the Eye of Providence and the Truncated Pyramid. Not sure how I'll end up wording that, but that's what it is. On the back of a dollar, if you open up the wallet, this is the Great Seal of America, which shows the Eye of Providence and the truncated pyramid so drawn. And that's actually not a symbol that goes back too far in time and was created just for that seal. When you search for a history, you would think that the symbolism of a triangular pyramid that's kind of separated into two into a triangle and then a kind of a trapezoid with a little eye above it, you would think that would have existed prior to that drawing. But no, it's not the case. There's symbolism of eyes in the sky of God. So that symbolism is extant. Kind of coming out of cloud. A cloud is a common thing. Kind of something coming out of a cloud, like even a hand coming out of a cloud. That's those. That imagery is represented on the aces of the minor arcana. Sometimes you'll have a hand coming out of a cloud holding a wand or a sword or a cup or a disc or something similar. So that's kind of I believe that's kind of the origination of the idea. And then the eye was put upon the triangle part of the pyramid. So that's what we're doing. We're doing the Eye of Providence and the chakras. And I've got my original that I didn't even, but here's my very original drawing. We can just see this general pyramid I'm talking about, and then the Eye of Providence would be right here, and then the pyramid, the entire pyramid is right there. So a good thing to notice, a basic thing, is how there's a triangle implied and then a square. So this is more heavenly and this is more earthly as the general symbolism, of course, that we're kind of used to dealing with by now. It's even represented here logically by the binary system, as where the one is the point, and I just represent that as the Holy Spirit and the Ankh. I like the symbol of the Ankh really, really well for the number one. And then you have the Taijitu for the number two, which is the duality and harmony with each other. And then the number 3 through 10 actually are just the 8 trigrams of the binary system, commonly known as the Yi Jing to people. So this triangle, it's important to note, the base equals its height. And the symbolism there is that of the vertical spine of the adept, because you can actually imagine a Buddha sitting right here and superimposed upon this pyramid. And so where the numbers 1 through 7 are actually the 7 chakras of the Indian system. And those correlate directly to the tree of life by number. And we're going to get into that too. And some of that's here. I was explaining it in a previous video of upon the new Abrahadabra title. So I've got all of that. I'm gonna re-show the Great Seal of America here. Make sure it's clear. See how big I can get it. That's pretty good as far as that. But that's the pyramid on the back of the dollar bill I'm talking about. Now that's a little more acute of a pyramid than I think is correct. Again, I think the exact measurement of the pyramid is where its base equals its height. But you see the nice image. I could go up, but it's not going to be very clear. Ooh, that's hard. Anyway, there's the nice eye symbol. I love that eye symbol, the radiating eye symbol, and of course the cognate symbol that is often shown is the right eye of Horus in that triangle. But any kind of wonderful radiant art will do. This general image will require a lot more artistic vision, honestly. I would love to see a lot more work done with the general image of a triangle with the eye of, it's called the Eye of Providence and the truncated pyramid. I don't think it's much more specific than that. The entire picture is called the Great Seal of America, but we're not talking about the specific seal. We're talking about that general imagery that I enjoy that. So I think it's a rather stroke of genius. This image right here. As I was saying, there's really not a history. Of course, there's a history for both a pyramid, and as I was saying, there's a history for eyes floating in the sky representing Deus or God in art, in historic kind of alchemical art and just spiritual art and whatnot. But both of them together, I forget the artist's name, but it was commissioned to create a seal for America. So it's pretty cool. So I love that I take on that symbolism just because when you do the geometry of a pyramid, which is basically just to say a triangle with its base equal to its height, you can easily draw 7 different sections. And I actually, oh yes, this is the, so we're getting right into the 2 diagrams I'm using here today. And I'm going to show you these 7 sections. This diagram got a little complex just because I'm going to go over quite a bit. It usually wouldn't look quite this bad, you know what I'm saying? You can make this look really elegant by just noting a nice pyramid, and that is to say an Eye of Providence like image in a circle. But this is how it kind of blows up without a circle around it, so it doesn't quite, and it's not quite very elegant because I'm kind of drawing how everything correlates together, so it messes up the graphic understandably. So and plus I'm just kind of rolling freehand because I kind of enjoy just writing it down. It makes it a little more educational because you got my just general notation a little bit rather than just pre-laid out nicely typewritten graphs, which would of course be lovely, but you know, take a little bit more work, of course, and are best for like a book or portfolio form, even, or computer format, you know. So anyway, so here's the pyramid, and you can see those circles, the middle circles. Those are 7 circles. So you can see how I was saying how the sevenfold division naturally occurs as you go up and down that triangle / pyramid. So it's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and you will notice where the quote abyss is, where there's a space between the triangle and trapezoid shape. It's interesting because in modern magic there's a philosophy of where you cross the abyss between Sephiroth 4 to 3. So right where this pyramid, so right where there is a space between this pyramid. So it's kind of an interesting synchronicity. Since I mentioned the crossing of the abyss type philosophy of modern magic, the student kind of needs to research enlightenment, the process of enlightenment a little deeper, because that does not take place with any note in some people, surprisingly. So the kind of science of actual initiation has evolved a little bit beyond like Crowley really blowing up his abyss experience is kind of my point, where he even meets the demon Corin zone apparently in his working. So I actually spoke about this in some previous videos, but some will like it's a good point, like where some will, what I call it, some will experience a quote psychological perichoresis at that point, which is a fancy word for meaning an acuteness of experience, of psychic experience. So where maybe like one kind of just feels a spiritual onset of, and then kind of one doesn't eat, kind of maybe feel, it's just you could interpret it kind of like that, like a spiritual gnosis or a little bit of a spiritual feeling coming on, so where your body doesn't really eat too much and for a little bit. Just one example, something like that, where you feel a psychic acuteness is what I'm saying, and I don't really want to get into anymore because it's kind of, the whole thing's varied, and it's not we're just doing like structures right now, and how cool the structures are and how they all fit together, because once you know that, you can kind of just go off to meditate on your own, is my point. Oh, all right. So I got a new mustache look a little bit. I trimmed it down a little bit. I just figured I'd go a little bit Salvador Dali, slightly anyway, just my version of it. Trimmed it down because the moderate hold stuff is a little bit light for me, so I got some heavier stuff on order, and I'll play around with that and maybe grow something a little heavier out. See if it will hold something like that. But I guess I got away from the more dour German here. This is the most Dali I've ever looked, for sure, because I've trimmed it thinner. So pretty cool with the Doctor Strange hat. I'd love to go to the Dali Museum like this, maybe this winter, huh? That'd be great. Dreaming. Okay. So, so we're calling this like something like what? I'll have to look at the beginning of the video anyway, but it's like I call it something like upon upon the the chakras upon the eye of Providence. And it actually gets into the new Abrahadabra, though it will. So that's the real cool thing. I'll try to make it end with the new Abrahadabra degrees correlated to this. This is pretty much the new Abrahadabra pyramid right here. And you see the letter N right here? That replaces the letter G of Freemasonry, actually. So it's really cool. And then you see up here the triangle. You can think of the triangle as an upside down letter V, which in Greek is the letter U as upsilon. It can be glyphed that way, or Latin. That is to say Latin. The Latin U can be just look like a V, especially when inscribed in stone. So an upside down V creates the apex of a triangle. And so if you imagine the letter N and atop that an upside down V, that was kind of my original vision. I noticed like a triangle just in a vision of Nu, because I like concentrating upon the letters Nu to represent the goddess Nuit, the sky goddess Nuit. So eventually I got like, I imagined the letter N and then the U above it, and I won't get more into detail. But I like how the letter N naturally creates the square, is in the square of the trapezoid of the truncated pyramid, and then the U is upside down as the triangle of the Eye of Providence. So there's naturally the word Nu in pretty much any triangle. So I love that, and again, my spiritual order of self-initiation is the new Abrahadabra, and so this is the spirit that I teach under. This is the spiritual seal that I teach under. So it's pretty cool. So I'm pretty much just teaching my school of magical philosophy. You know, I've called it different things. Hopefully I'll get some terminology hedged out eventually and stuff like that. But so it's this one, and then let me go to the second diagram that I'm going to cover today. So this second diagram looks kind of weird at first, but it's just a close-up. I have to do a close-up, like this is kind of a close-up vision of the bottom part of the pyramid. So more the bottom part of the truncated pyramid is this diagram, and I write it right here. The truncated pyramid is right when the Anahata heart chakra starts. That's right where the truncated pyramid starts on the body, right at the heart chakra. So it's the heart chakra level on down is this diagram's focus. And especially this big blown up part is the Muladhara chakra area, because there's a whole bunch of symbolism in that all gets grouped together is the notion, is the idea, and because it does, you can kind of diagram it as a big circle with individual stuff in there, and that's what I did. But that's how you kind of have to do it. You don't want to think of the Muladhara chakra is composed of a bunch of complex stuff. I mean, that's not actually the point. That's not, especially during meditation. It all kind of flows. It's all the yin area of the chakras. So it's all the yin based chakras right there. And how you can imagine it is a Buddha sitting upon a lotus, and right where he is sitting, his Muladhara chakra is right there pretty much at the lotus. And so right there, that entire complex is the yin area of the body, and the unity of the yin complex is symbolized by the lotus. So that's a really good way to imagine. If you're sitting down in meditation, you can easily imagine that, because once your body becomes real still, that parasympathetic relaxation kicks in, and it's really easy to unify the entire yin area of the body and to kind of flow with that lotus ideology I'm speaking of. In contradistinction, of course, the vertical spine area of the body, that's all yang. That's symbolized as all yang. And when you're doing pranayama, you're circulating that kind of spinal energy in and up and down, in and out. You're flowing. You're getting into flowing because you're kind of you're retending the retention of the breath creates a slowdown of psychology. The breath is correlated to thought quite a bit, especially in early students. So where it's super helpful to slow down the breath, and you will notice a cessation of thought. And yoga's definition is the cessation of the mind stuff. So yoga means union. It's by my corrected Sanskrit alphabet order, the letter Y is the 31st letter, and G is the third letter of Sanskrit, and 31 plus 3 equals 34, and 34 equals 1 in serial English, where A equals 1, Z equals 26. So 1 as 15 plus 14 plus 5 equals 34. And I just thought of a synchronicity. Let me get that dollar bill out, and we'll show that big word 1 right there. That's 34. Some of these you just know, and it's kind of cool. You just know them by heart. Like God's 26. And I won't do it. I won't show off. N's 23, of course. But 1 is 34. And then 34, I'm saying, you just do a serial Sanskrit, which never gets done. But 31 plus 3 equals 34. So yoga equals 1, and yoga means union, and that's the meaning of 1. So yoga is very powerful. Just the breath, just a natural yoga. It's underrated. A lot of people try to focus on the dynamic stuff, such as ritual magic, or just don't bother with any of it, of course, and try to do other random stuff or whatever. But yoga is kind of the chill out point there of the system. But anyway, so we got these two diagrams right here. let's show them parallel. That's a kind of a nice, because that's the, and so, whoop, there you go. And so the 3, I've written, so 3 right here corresponds to that very top level, so that's what I'm saying. And I tried to kind of demarcate the abyss area on this diagram as well. And then I wrote the corresponding trigrams of the binary system, as well as the planets and the numbers to make it super clear on this. Whereas this one, I have to get a little more complex into the new Abrahadabra degree system. But I did write the planets right here and the numbers, just not the trigrams. I wrote the chakra names right here. So it's quite clear which ones I'm talking about. And then I even drew a little bit of two ajna petals. And you see these Sanskrit letters I have on this diagram right here? I make a change with these Sanskrit letters I have on ajnas 2 chakra petals. The first one is Va, and the second one is Sha. And then you see what I mean when you imagine a Buddha sitting down and you look at his 2 chakra petals, you look at the letters Sha and then Va. And so you can quite easily imagine he is symbolically identified with Shiva, because that's the 2 letters in the name Shiva. So it's quite magical how it works out, because that's the OG shaman as we were talking about. So let's roll with this one a little bit. I didn't mean to make a funny. Let's see here. So let's actually quit right there for just a second. I've actually gotten adept at melding and molding things together. I think we got over an abyss point, and I can combine. Not Columbine. No, just kidding. Terrible joke. Let's roll. Love is the law. Love under whoop. All right. I'm back in action, everyone, and I thought of something I missed, and that is to reference the major yoga history that I like and chakra history that I like. And you wouldn't think to look here unless you kind of were clued into this scholar by some other work. But the title of the book is called The Yoga Sutra of Patanjali, a Biography. And then in parentheses, it's the Lives of Great Religious Books, number 43. But the author's name is David Gordon White. And that's a really, really wonderful little yoga history of both Patanjali's work and yoga as a whole, to include a bit upon the chakra system, and that's our major interest. And that's where I just want to reference that you can find information that the beginning philosophy surrounding what we just commonly know as the sevenfold chakra scheme, well, that first wasn't sevenfold. It was fairly vague, and you can probably point out important organ centers as kind of the first ideas even. I haven't read the work in a while, and I will need to just do references, but I want to say that a fivefold system kind of came to fore as precedent to the sevenfold system. Now, for my argument that I want to make, I don't even need any crazy history to yoga or anything like that. I just need the student to be aware that right when ideas are first created, there's usually quite a bit more variance than you would first think from looking at the system as it exists in the present day, usually quite a bit more hammered out in quite a bit more refined fashion. And one of the major pitfalls, and I can just say occult philosophy, that's kind of what it was known as, esoteric philosophy. We can get scary with the terms, but that's just a secret. And there's a bad side to the occult, but it's kind of silliness to. I mean, I don't want to say that because there's relevant study with as far as ceremonial magic technique, perhaps, but I don't get into that. I focus on kind of white magic and then number symbolism and these symbolic aspect of the occult, alchemy. It's really just medieval philosophy even is highly symbolic and relevant because you get the planetary heavens symbolism being artistically drawn, such as the 7 planets. You get some wonderfully fancy drawings, motifs of all that. So, I mean, really, most of these topics that I'm discussing kind of have an art history attached to them. So, I remain excited that I will eventually be able to put together quite a few wonderful videos, more like talks, where I am able to show a bunch of relevant art along with my talk. So there's a really, and that's how I got into quote magic to begin with, is because I was an artist and I was actually wanting to draw a lot of this stuff out. And in order to be able to do that, you actually have to be solidified in your philosophical standpoint as well as knowledgeable in the traditional correlations to do intelligent and accurate depictions of the subject matter. So it really makes you kind of focus and study the subject, in other words. And no, I did not just love talking. Let me see how much I do. 6. Actually, is that saying I really do? 2. Okay, yeah, see? Kind of, I'd probably rather be, but let's roll. Should I put these glasses on? Nope. What the heck? I don't need these glasses that would let me see these things more clearly. I'm like, I'm a what child? I'm a wild child, son. Oh, what? So here's these 2 diagrammatics. And in my previous videos, I've went over the number system 1 through 10, and that's what's going on in these 7 circles right here. That's the numbers 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, as I show at the very left here. And where the number 7 can be symbolic of the entire last four sephirot of the tree of life. It really is the correct philosophy, but I'm not sure what the complete magical proof of that is, despite that you can imagine a Buddha sitting down upon this pyramid, and so where his legs become wrapped in the lotus posture, that's cognate with the fact that the four lower sephirot combine into kind of one yin section of the chakra system. And then I have it as a big circle right here. That's kind of what I was wanting to get into. And I have it even, if you can, I'll zoom in on this graph. You can see I have it diagrammed and labeled as, quote, the yin section. So I hope it's clear. In general, this is the yin section of the tree of life that I think the four yin trigrams of the binary system are correlated to. I'll say that very simply, that the four yin trigrams of the binary system are correlated to the last four sephirot of the tree of life, being the numbers 7, 8, 9, and 10. Netzach, Hod, Yesod, and Malkut, as Venus, Mercury, Moon, and planetary Earth. That's the yin section I'm talking about. And because it's the last four sephirot, it becomes quite a big complex. And now let me say that I've also included a little bit of alchemy in this diagram, where I want to briefly get into the 3 phases of alchemy and the 7 stages. And here I have the entire yin section of the tree of life directly correlates to the Negretto phase of alchemy, which is like the blackening. But anyway, don't take it too rough or whatever, but it's kind of when it's at the youngest stages of the student's development. So where one should progress out of Muladhara, the Negretto directly correlates with the Muladhara chakra. The Muladhara completely symbolizes the Negretto phase. So you could just say Negretto equals Muladhara, the Muladhara chakra. That's what we're talking about, that Muladhara phase, actually. And that's the last 4 sephirot of the tree of life. And as far as the magic philosophy is concerned, it's when the adept graduates from the 7th sephira to the 6th sephira upon the tree of life. So a very important thing to understand is when you ascend from Muladhara to Svadhisthana, when you ascend from the Muladhara chakra to the Svadhisthana chakra, you're basically going from the number 7 to the number 6. That's the graduated step. And in magic, that's the name of that adept making that progress is at 7, your name is the Philosophus, and at 6, your name is the Adeptus Minor. So you go from being a Philosophus to an Adeptus Minor. And see, those last 4 sephirot, they're of the Negretto, and they don't directly, but you can kind of sense them as being the 4 elements or 4 different things that kind of need equilibrated into the fifth quintessential one thing a little bit, and a little bit of light needs to enter and envelop the system. And that's kind of where the influx of the sphere of Tipperet comes into play. So you go from Venus to the planetary sun. So you get out of that entire yin section of the tree of life and the chakra schema, and start to go into the yang section of the tree of life and the chakra schema, and the verticality of the spine, the the first yang section, and where you symbolically were at the hips before, and actually at the genital level, which does symbolize a more survival instinct level, but there's gradations of that, so you don't want to oversimplify anything. At the very bottom level, of course, there would be like a survival of, and just a will to go, pretty much. But you don't want to just. You always want spirit involved with that. That's the big lesson of this kind of initial four things you need to equilibrate. Are those initial kind of wonky four elements? I don't want to say that word, but the cognate symbolism is the Sphinx. So the Sphinx is a beast, and I won't get into any more detail than that, but that its kind of four different parts represent the four elements, but it has a human head, and that human represents the Holy Spirit in control and in domination over the four elements, completely, totally, and wholly, as the originator thereof, as the God King on planet Earth. So, I mean, the adept doesn't really reach Pharaoh status or anything, just when they first equilibrate their kind of elements. And so they usually cross a little abyss. I actually didn't picture that here, but you can imagine a Tetractys. And so where the last four Sephiroth kind of are more of a base of a Tetractys. And so you kind of become less square, believe it or not. The symbolism's there of circularity to roundness, even within this diagram of even in the diagram of the pyramid, as I remarked upon before. At the very top, you have a triangle, and the truncated trapezoid. The center of that trapezoid is a square. So you have a triangle above a square. So in essence, you have a roundness principle above a square principle. And as the adept progresses in initiation, you can say they, quote, become less square, quite literally, because the Pythagorean Tetractys of the numbers 1 through 10 create a triangle, and you can imagine as you go up that pyramid, when you cut off that base, that's what you do. Essentially, the symbolism's there that you just cut off your base into periodically and sequentially. So that's kind of what's happening. You could say you become more triangular, but it's basically. We can keep going. You basically go toward the original unity, and that's what even daily practice is. It's the recognition that the body becomes out of whack because of that's what stress is, the body becoming out of whack due to an abundance of plurality. So it's just everything's about getting back to the unity, and the synonym of unity being centeredness. So unity equals center. So the body always wants to get back to center and unity as best it can, of course, just from an inability to be able to really enjoy itself, not to mention handle stress. You don't want to live at the outer edges. You want a deep centeredness and calm. It's just you want to maximally enjoy self. So that's where yoga comes in, because stillness practices ends up being a quick way to recharge yourself. So it really is not hard to figure out that both stillness practices and then breath control, those are and then dot meditation, believe it or not, because you're just focusing without closing your eyes. You don't want to overstress yourself, but try not to close your eyes as much as possible, and then just concentrate on a dot. Those are like super simple classic yoga techniques because they work. And it's all just kind of designed to point you to unity as fast and as efficiently as possible. Believe it or not, that's the intent behind it. And dot meditation works quite well, and it's very nice for people who stare at computers often, because it'll sharpen the eyes. And there's a natural I haven't really even covered this Indian philosophy subject yet, but there's a tripart formula in India that they've noted. The yoga philosophy has actually noted how dull people are, and how things become dull after a while, just mentally, if not properly maintained or cared for. And that principle of sluggishness is called tamas. So the tripart formula, there's a tripart formula of it called sattva, rajas, tamas, where tamas is quotations means ignorance. So it really is kind of a dull state. You could think of smoking a bunch of weeds and drinking a bunch of beer, and then imagine doing that for a few weeks. Just really rolling out on it, rolling out with it, falling off, way off that wagon. And your body becomes so dulled down, and your eyes will actually become pretty dulled down and become like kind of hazed and glazed over a little bit, just from all that, because those are so depressants after a while. You'll get a kind of depressed down. That's an easy way to, I don't want to overdo it or anything. I don't want to say, oh my goodness. I don't want to give anybody like, oh yeah, I remember that. But that's the principle of dullness that I'm talking about. And that's what the Indians are talking about in their word tamas, which means ignorance. And sometimes you can, if you wake up late at night, you can kind of sense a bit of tamas going on. Perhaps as people are sleeping, like a kind of a down state. You don't really want to do yoga like right at in the middle of the night, for instance. Uh, there's a really nice time to do yoga and breath meditation, dot meditation, which is right in the morning. Uh, right before and after the dawn of the sun. That's when everything is quite nice, peaceful. People are not thinking too much. Perhaps people have not woke up. Something like that. Very calm. Just, I guess, you know, let me just use the word. I'm not even sure it makes sense. Bioenergetically. uh, that's a word for like a body work program, by the way. I was just kind of making a joke there. All right. So I think all of this is clear. I kind of spoke about the reason it takes quite a long time to discuss the Muladhara chakra, and things get going once you go up the chakra system, is because Muladhara is actually the entire yin area of the chakra system and the tree of life it's correlated to. So basically, I correlate the last four Sephiroth of the tree of life to Muladhara. Most simply. That's the most simple way to do it. And then and then you can imagine the four Sephiroth in Muladhara. And what I'm saying is that they themselves create a natural Tetractys-like order, which I've written out before, but I'm actually going to do it right now. I don't even know if that's 2 pages or not, but I'm just going to put you just put a full Tetractys in a circle. You can easily see what I mean, but I did it once, like, and I actually in the video, probably on the new Abrahadabra or something like that, I had to do it mid-video as well. So it really doesn't take long. I'm just doing Tetractys. And you can do it yourself. I don't want to make it too big, though. And we'll show you how the levels. You kind of have to do this just to show how the levels do actually make sense for some reason. And like I was saying, how the adept becomes less square. You guys won't even believe what I'm talking about unless I oops, I'm gonna have to do it like that, kind of goofer stuford, and then like that, and then like this, and then like that. No, just kidding. Then like that, and then like this. But this is 7, 6, 5, 4. What? Just kidding. What? 7. Good. This is it right here, guys. This is up to the heart level. We'll go heart, liver, stomach, and then genitals, and Also, that area though, I haven't even got into this. This topic is so crozano, because I haven't even got into how once you stand up as a person, the subchakras come into play, and so Muladhara, you can quit correlating the four lower separate to Muladhara and start correlating them to the breaks upon the human body. So in case, and for example, the arms, and I'll do the legs right next here, but the shoulders, right where the torso breaks into the shoulders, this is the number 7 as Netzach upon the tree of life. And then the elbows is the number 8 as Hod. And then the wrists are number 9 as Yesod. And the 10 fingers are the number 10 as Malkut. And then, so we're right where the hips break from the torso. That's, again, number 7 is Netzach, and it can represent the entire yin area and that subchakra system I just spoke of upon the arms. But once you stand up, say, we can break it down there and say 8 is the knees, whereas 7 is Netzach was just the Muladhara chakra. Now we can have a subchakra as the number 8 as Hod, Mercury, and say that's the knees, because the elbows and the knees really bend. That's the main point of the bending of the body, to tell you the truth. That's what it's known for right there, is the bending of the knees and the elbows. So it's very cool that it's correlated to Mercury. And the most quote winding type trigram of the binary system, the trigram that looks most like a winding river. So that's pretty cool too. So, as I say, upon the body, the number 7 is the hips, number 8's the knees, number 9's the ankles as Yesod, the number 9, and then 10 is the 10 toes, is the number, is Malkut upon the tree of life, the kingdom, the earth plane. Makes sense, because that's the end of the human body right there, is the end of the tree of life. And who knows what the Kabbalists were thinking of. I think they were just extending Pythagoreanism a little bit. But they could have also liked that, of course, the 10 fingers and 10 toes kind of ended the Tetractys. So why not enjoy that it ends the tree of life, so-called, into an earthly, and then they added the symbolism of Malkut to the number 10, which means kingdom, implying planetary earth. So that was pretty cool. So it fits. So the heaven to earth symbolism fits right in to the tree of life, and the body, pretty much from the top of the head to the bottom of the feet. You're going pretty much heaven to earth right there. So, all right. So let me show this diagram. I pictured. I got off on a little tangent right there, and I'm gonna stop video for 1 second. Oh my God, is that Walter Lewis DeLong. I do cut through ignorance again with my father's Uncle Henry pocket knife. So here we go. I have written out that diagram. It shows you this wonderful Tetractys pattern that I use as the basis, believe it or not, to order the tarot keys sequentially up the chakras. All right. As I said in previous videos, I discovered this little pattern in 2008, right, 2 weeks after I kind of became certain that the number 7 as Muladhara could represent the entire last 4 Sephirot of the Tree of Life. I just kind of happened to be working with the Tetractys symbol, and then came up with this little diagram. Now this is only until the heart chakra. There's a little bit more of this, but we're just doing it until the heart chakra. And this is technically called the new Abrahadabra degree system of self-initiation. And you can just imagine it is the first 20 tarot keys upon the last 4 chakras, and going up, that is to say, Muladhara, Svadhisthana, Manipura, and Anahata as the heart chakra. So this little diagram ends at the heart chakra, which I labeled at the left here, and I actually put them. This is where I see the chakras at, the heart chakra, and then the liver. I actually put Manipura as the liver, at the liver center. And then I put Svadhisthana as the belly button, you can imagine, right at the belly button. Because that was originally the first center of nourishment that the child gets. So that's a pretty natural center, chakra energy center right there. And it's correlated to the sun, so it actually represents the sunshine nourishing the body as well, and making things grow, in other words. And then right below the Svadhisthana is the number 6, and the sun is the number 7, and Venus. So you get a switch between a kind of solarity and a Venusian femininity. And the number 7 is the first part of the entire yin complex of the chakra system. And the last 4 Sephirot of the Tree of Life are all yin-based Sephirot, as correlated to their planets. 7, 8, 9, 10 is Venus, Mercury, Moon, and planetary Earth, where planetary Earth is given the symbolism of the Latin name Terra, like a moon, like a Earth goddess, Terra, and then Mercury is seen as like a androgynous hermaphrodite. And the reason why he is kind of, he is actually has a female trigram associated to him. So believe it or not, that kind of emphasizes the femininity of Mercurius. And that's symbolized in the actual metal called in Latin hydragyrum, which is a real cool word. But that means mercury, and then the metal mercury is like a liquid metal, real fun to play with. Just like forms globules. So that's kind of like a female metal, if you could just use that terminology. And so, like, Mercury is actually somehow kind of a female male. And so he actually does get ascribed a female, a yin-based trigram, which is to say, to that. So it's really not my point is, I don't have to like kind of prove. I don't really have to prove the absolute femininity of Mercury. Hopefully, just to say that Mercury is a bit feminine, and that he is commonly known to be probably both androgynous and hermaphroditic at one point or another. But the Mercury, he's known as a dual form because of the windingness, of the innate windiness and changefulness and so-called quotes mercuriality. It's a hard one to say. Maybe if you want me to repeat it, I'll roll. Mercuriality, 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 mercuriality. You really have to scrunch up your voice on that one. Mercuriality, mercuriality. And the name was Mercurius, Mercurius, Mercurius in Latin, Mercurius. And in Syro-Latin, where in a Greek-based Latin, Mercurius equals 133 serially, and that's the same as the Greek name for the child god Harpocrates. And that's a really cool word that begins with the letter A, even though it sounds like ha. The A is aspirated in Greek. So if you add those two words up, they both equal 133. So you get a direct cognate parallel. So where Mercurius, so you really don't emphasize the like the of Mercurius. You kind of leave that out. Mercurius is a direct cognate parallel to Harpocrates of the Greek word Harpocrates. So you have the Latin Mercurius equals 133 equals Harpocrates, and they're both mercurial a little bit because Harpocrates is the child, and in the trinity of Father, Mother, Child, you have sulfur, salt, mercury, sulfur, salt, mercury, where the mercury, wow, sulfur, salt, mercury, where the mercury is the child. I must have said that too much. Sulfur, salt, mercury, where the mercury is the child. So, Mercurius equals Harpocrates. Is really cool is 133. If you use a Greek-based Latin and then Syro-Greek, where alpha is 1 and omega is 26. There's a little bit of obscurity what the correct serial order of Greek is, but you just line up place value to that metric value that is commonly used, and you will see that 26 is the correct place value for the metric value of 800 as omega. So you got to use the correct serial order of Greek, and then you'll be flying. So let me try to say Mercurius. I get hung up on a mere. Mercurius equals Harpocrates. Mercurius equals Harpocrates. I must kind of zone you in on on time too much. That's why I was getting hung up. All right. So this part of the talk is actually, we're getting into the new Abrahadabra degree system that I thought of, and based upon the Tetractys. Here's actually the degree system, and I wrote the actual numbers out up to the number 29, and that's how they correlate upon the new Abrahadabra pyramid and the 7 chakras. It's a little off right here just because there were so many degrees right at the bottom, just because of the Muladhara chakra being such a large complex, as I said. So it has actually the first 10 degrees in Muladhara, and then Svadhisthana has 6 degrees symbolized here, and then Manipura has 3 degrees as symbolized here, and then Anahata has 1 degree, the 20th degree, as symbolized here. So this is where the symbolism comes into play that I was talking about, where you can say that the adept loses his squareness, because you can see how this is the full Tetractys right here, is the numbers 1 through 10. The next shape here is just a smaller triangle of the numbers 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, and 16. And there's only 6 numbers here, where before there was 10 right here, and there was 4 levels right here, and only 3 levels right here. So basically this most base level right here of the numbers 1, 2, 3, 4, symbolically you could say it got beheaded or hatcheted off, and now the adept self-identifies with the numbers 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, and 16. So he becomes more triangular, and that is to say round and circular, because there is a natural and upward process of gradual perfection towards unity going on optimally, up to the very top degree associated with Keter, and that's the number 29 up here. But up into the heart chakra, the first 20 degrees of the tarot and the new Abrahadabra follow a completely logical pattern. They just kind of get ever more acute within that number pattern of the Tetractys I just demonstrated, where you first have the numbers 1 through 10, but then the bottom level falls off, and then the next triangle is only of 6 numbers, which in sequence from the number 10 are 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, and 16. And then that bottom level of that triangle gets removed, and you have a triangle with only 2 levels and of 3 numbers in sequence from the number 16 of the last triangle being the numbers 17, 18, and 19 at the top. And then from that level, which is Geburah and Mars on the tree of life, it's that Sephira. That little number pattern ends with just there being 1 level. And that's why you only have 1 tarot key associated with the heart chakra of Anahata, being the number 20. Because the last chakra of Manipura as the Sephira Gabura is the number 5. It had the numbers 17, 18 as the bottom little sublevel, and then the number 19 as its top little sublevel. So you had the triangle of 17, 18, 19. Well, when you take off that bottom level of 17 and 18, you're just left with that top level of 19. So there's actually nothing to further subtract. And you just repeat that top level. And so at that point, you're just left with if you just imagine the common symbolism of the Pythagorean Tetractys, where the 4 levels are just symbolized more as the 4 numbers 1, or 4 vertical letters of I, which is to say just 4 vertical strokes. Well, you can easily see the 4 levels right here. And so I'm just saying I wrote it right here. Well, not with these numbers. But you can just see how the 4 levels of the Tetractys can kind of get hatcheted off symbolically until you're left with just 1 vertical mark. Whereas before you had kind of 3 marks, 1 at the top and 2 at the bottom. And then with the chakra before that, you had 3 levels. 1 horizontal mark, 2 horizontal marks, and 3 horizontal marks. And then at the very bottom, in Muladhara, like I say, we had the full Tetractys splayed out. That's the very foundation and basis of the system, where you had 1 mark, 2 marks, 3 marks, and 4 marks. So that's where the symbolism of the adept becoming less square. I didn't want to harp on that, but when you just lop the bottom level of yourself off at each chakra, it's as simple as that. Just imagine lopping the very most baseness of yourself off as you move up each chakra. And what I mean by that is chopping a level of the Tetractys off, of the Tetractys of Pythagoras. Just imagine lopping a level of that off with each chakra as you move up. And then right at that top level right there, that number 1 spot, you're at that heart chakra level. All right? And that's the complete logicality of the system. That is that system right there. And it's true up until the heart chakra level of the adept. So that was very simple and very succinct. I hadn't actually described it that succinctly before. But it's actually pretty easy once you kind of logic it out. And then right there, it takes quite a bit at that heart chakra level for the adept to kind of unify right there. And as far as the seven I think stages, 7 stages of alchemy of Dennis Hawk, which he sources to Basil Valentine. I like it being called the conjunctio right there at the heart level, because the 20th tarot key is correlated to the planetary sun. But actually that chakra right there is correlated to planetary Jupiter. So you get a really great overlay of the sun and Jupiter. And what Jupiter is like the sky. It's like the exuberance, pure exuberance of the sky. And so you have the sun right there too. It's just a real nice area of harmony. It kind of harmonizes everything. You overdo it and you'll get a little emotional there. You'll really feel it, the heart chakra kind of bursting out when you are overly emotional. And sometimes in life you'll experience over emotionality. And try to think of the heart chakra next time if that happens. It'll kind of maybe tense up or something like that. All right. Yeah, I don't mess around. Let's do it. Yep. What? The Tetractys of Pythagoras may have influenced Jewish Kabbalic thinkers. Got them interested in the number 10. They made that their Malkut, the kingdom, planetary Earth. It gets associated to. My oh my. How the third eye turns. Just kidding. All right. So let's go over again here this pattern of the Tetractys, because it's actually the foundational basis for how the tarot correlates to the tree of life, believe it or not. Okay, can I make that simpler? It's the full extension of the Tetractys. I can make that more complex. Well, I can specify that, but add one more word to it. And then I could say it's the specificity of the full expansion of the Tetractys, where you have the numbers 1 through 10, and then the numbers 1 through 6, and then the numbers 1 through 3, and then the numbers 1, singular 1, and then the number 1. So if you want to go from top to bottom, you have the very first level of the Tetractys, but then you have, but then you draw that Tetractys again, and now you draw the first and second level, and then you draw the Tetractys again, and you draw the first, second, and third level. And then you draw the Tetractys again, and you draw the first, second, third, and fourth level. And that's the last 4 chakras. And that's Sephirot, 4 through 7, upon the tree of life, as Kesed, Geburah, Tipperet, and Netzach. Jupiter, Mars, Sun, and Venus. So very cool how that logically works out. And that's the first 20 keys of the tarot. That's my major stance. That's not too hard to explain. And then where the first 4 keys of the tarot are in the Sephirah Malkut is the number 10. The next 3 degrees are in the Sephirah Yesod as the number 9. The next 2 after that are in the Sephirah Hod as the number 8. And then what ends up being the 10th tarot key of the Hermit, commonly called, is the soul key in Netzach as Venus. So you can say, so the 10th card of the Hermit is the only card in the Sephirah of Netzach by the new Abrahadabra degree system. And that's kind of the adept kind of taking taking a little bit of control of themselves and doing some yoga or ceremonial magic to try to get over that hump of kind of that hermit hump a little bit, because the next sephira above Netzach is Tipperet, and that means beauty, and it's the sun, it's planetary sun. So it's the symbolism is breaking into the light, kind of like the hexagram, and getting like light filled a little bit right there. So it's kind of and what it kind of connotes is a loss of base reason, like really logical reason a little bit. The mind has a tendency to really kind of leaden itself out with non-inspired thinking a little bit when young. And if you get caught into those more dense loops, kind of, I don't even know how, want to even know, I don't want to spend too much time, but just wrong thought. And because it's not really thought, once you get into higher levels of yogic science, it's not base reason. So just the tendency towards ignorance progressively gets lopped off in the adept, and that's very well symbolized by the most base level of every Tetractys that gets more acute as you go up, at least to the heart chakra level. It gets cut off, or removed, or transcended. Let's just say transcended. And and that itself is symbolic of consciousness moving towards unity. And by unity, you can even use the word divinity, because the Holy Spirit is at the top of the system. So, and just reverberating the method of infusing the body with unity periodically to equilibrate the system and center the system. It's kind of like dynamics of systemic dynamics, just like equilibrate it, just like simple common sense stuff. But where the unity is symbolized upon the chakra system is right above the head. The number 1 is. So you have a kind of a vertical symbolism that goes down the spine. And just doing breath work. And then a little bit of ritual work where you kind of unite yourself with the 4 directions and then move back into the center of the circle. Do a little bit of work there. Kind of gets you on a little more visceral level than just kind of thinking about everything. So you want to do in breaths and out breaths that slow and stop and infuse thought and mind and consciousness with prana, which is to say spirit, chi. It's kind of all the unitary principle of the spirit, which is the Pneuma Hagion. All right. So we showed this graph pretty good of this. This is the major logic right here, believe it or not, that I found in the new Abrahadabra degree system, which is just like a full and logical extension of the logic found in the Tetractys. So a full extension of the logic of the pattern as found as in the Tetractys of Pythagoras, where instead of his just the 4 levels, you repeat 4 Tetractys, but you remove a level as you progress up the chakras from Muladhara, Svadhisthana, Manipura, and Anahata. So it's like 10 plus 6 plus 3 plus 1 is the math of how many units or little ones of the Tetractys, little dots of the Tetractys there are. There's 10 in Muladhara, 6 in Svadhisthana, 3 in Manipura, and just 1 dot, the top level of the Tetractys, in Anahata, the heart chakra. So that's where everything conjuncts right there. That's like, see, everything builds towards that conjunction is a major point. So it's most base right at Muladhara. You lose a level of baseness, you move to Svadhisthana, you're there pretty good, going good, because that's planetary sun, so you should be kind of getting some good divinity there going. But then when you move toward the liver chakra of Manipura, you lose a level there and get a little more mature. You overcome some ego, like the sun has a little bit of debauch and ego to it. A little bit like, think beer drinking, and a little bit of ego attached with getting a little bit of light of the sun. The light of the sun is enjoyable, and perhaps makes you lazy at an early stage, something like that, just something like that. And then, since the next chakra of Manipura is I correlate to Mars, it's a little bit of an adult will. Maybe you do some, like, if you could get some ceremonial magic, like a basic elemental ritual going on a few times a day, something like that. That's like kind of the initiatory will I'm talking about. Something kind of where you make a pretty good willed effort is nice to try to stimulate that, or at least in line with the activity that is represented in that chakra of the liver, and the number 5 is Mars, and the magic square of Mars, the 5x5 magic square. Okay, so right above that, once you move to Anahata as the heart chakra, you lose that level of Manipura, and you're just alone right there. You are just that top level of the Tetractys at the heart chakra as an adeptus exemptus. You're a major adept right there. You're an exempt adept. You're called actually a major adept in Gabura at the liver level, and then at the heart level you're an exempt adept. It's called an adeptus exemptus. That's pretty much as high as it goes without transcending ego to a really good extent, and kind of getting more of a Eastern type transcendental awareness blossoming. With the heart chakra, it really opens the adept up, and that's why there's just a unitary tarot degree, the 20th tarot degree correlated to planetary suns right here at the heart chakra. And then as the adept crosses the abyss, so-called in magic, and is represented upon this truncated pyramid that I've diagrammed out, right here is the heart chakra. And as you in quotations, cross the abyss, it's nicely symbolized here by there being a space between the truncated pyramid and the Eye of Providence, the triangle above that pyramid. So that's actually what I'm saying. That's the move from the heart chakra to the throat chakra of the adept. And that move, it's the move from numbers 4 to 3, Jupiter to Saturn, Kesed to Binah upon the tree of life. And with that move, you first enter the triangle area of the Eye of Providence. And with that becomes quite a bit of, quote, transcendence of consciousness, which is to say influx. And I am absolutely trying to mess up as much as possible here. $4.20 as to if I should go on. I said 4. I was like, what? No way. I'm already 16 minutos, and then I rolled again as like 20, 420. Oh, and then 18. What? If I keep rolling, we'll be here all day. But anyway, it's not the influx. I think my mustache is still holding up. Oh, anyway. Just kidding. So, anywho, the triangle's the influx of consciousness. That's what the separation means. You know, there's kind of a separation between a truncated pyramid that has as its center a square, and then a space between that and a floating triangle that has an eye at the center of it. That's kind of just floating there. So, you know, if you had to pick one that would represent heaven or earth and like some kind of enlightened consciousness, or just kind of somebody getting started working on themselves or something like that, you know, you'd pick the triangle with like this open eye shining light out of it rather than just like a pyramid, an earthy kind of looking pyramid. So, you know, simple points. But the triangle symbolizes the first 3 chakras, getting down to brass tacks. And the student should always realize that it's those chakras that represent the most transcendent aspects of the chakra system, because they're the pyramid, they're the Eye of Providence. The first 3 chakras are, to include the throat. Now the symbolism is after pretty much the thyroid area of the throat, the adept, that's where the adept gets beheaded. All right? That's the symbolism of transcending your ego self, is being beheaded. It's rampant in Eastern art. I mean, I love Eastern art. I love that symbolism of people really getting rolled, you know, as far as getting beheaded and stuff, you know. It's great symbolism because it's just direct, so direct. It doesn't play or mess around. It's like in death is life. Oh, what's that mean? Oh, that's what that means. Yeah. But anyway, that occurs symbolically between the heart chakra and the throat chakra, is another major point in symbolism. That's what the separation of the truncated pyramid from the floating eye is. The eye is right at the ajna chakra of the forehead. So right at that level, there's a floating eye, and then right at the heart chakra level, that's right where if you can imagine some little guy standing on a big truncated pyramid right at the top, right, he would be standing right on top of the heart chakra, right there. That's right where it is. And then way above there, a little bit of floating eye in the sky. But that's just the third eye of the Buddha and the adept and the human being. It's just a human being superimposed, sitting down upon that pyramid. So I think we made her pretty clear, brother. And so those chakras get correlated to the tarot. The tarot keys can fit right upon those chakras in a pretty beautiful manner. And that's what I was just showing here. You follow it in. You end up, the key ends up, I think, following the logic of the Tetractys. So where you have a full Tetractys drawn out in Muladhara, and then you have a Tetractys with just its first 3 levels drawn out in Tipperet. Next, you have a Tetractys with just its first 2 levels drawn out and as Manipura. And then finally, you have just that first top level of the Tetractys as the Anahata level of the heart chakra. So, very cool system. It just goes right up logically. Very logical. That's the first 20 keys of the tarot. And then right after that, the adept, hopefully the future magus, eventually crosses the abyss, loses his head, so to speak. It gets lopped off as the heart chakra opens, and then he transcends to the Vishuddha chakra. That quite a bit of transcendence goes on right there. And you get turned from being solidly self-defined as the ego to a lot more self-defined as the quote probability cloud of the non-ego. So a lot of non-ego, and which you could say zeroness, but you could say infusion of Holy Spirit, a prana, a lot. You get more prana infused quite a bit, which equals a lot of transcendence, so-called. And let me see if we could just leave her there. Yeah, we can just leave it there. It's just like a lot of words for enlightenment and transcendence and all that, just plug in a bunch of non-ego type words, nirvana, moksha. It's not true nirvana and moksha right there. It's just the beginning of the opening up, as I say, once you hit that throat chakra level, because that's the very bottom of the triangle that composes the eye of Providence that like floats above the truncated pyramid. All right, enough of that. It's kind of fun symbolism. So we got it, baby. So that's the this all happens within the truncated pyramid, this super logical scheme of the first 20 tarot keys. That's the chakras 4, 5, 6, and 7. the base chakra of Muladhara, the next chakra of Svadhisthana, the chakra of Manipura, and then the chakra of Anahata. Those are all within that truncated pyramid. And as the adept rises above those, he eventually comes into the conjunctio, the top level of that Tetractys, that major Tetractys of initiation, the adept has secretly been undergoing. And he arrives in Kesed, the Anahata chakra, and now the work is to open the heart chakra up. And it's a union. It's like a unity. So the two planets involved are Jupiter and planetary Sun, both quite harmonizing planets. You can even imagine a nice sunny day, very harmonizing sun. You're really wanting to harmonize yourself right there. And eventually it'll feel like it could even feel like you're trying to hold up a bunch of plates, like a big bunch of plates that are stacked up, and you're trying to achieve like that really hard balance. Is one feeling of like, because it's kind of a little ego, like heretofore you're kind of a little self. It's symbolic, whether it doesn't have to happen to everybody, but it's just kind of a general symbolism. That's kind of the most narrow aspect of the self, and as it wakes up, it can sometimes kind of feel like you're trying to balance a whole bunch of plates and kind of a weight. You're trying to balance a whole bunch of stuff because you're trying to preserve your ego self. So once the ego tries to kind of resist and kind of preserve itself at those early stages, the ego is and the self, the general adept, is not quite as fluid in self change. So it can, and sometimes it just feels like sometimes it feels like there might be a heavier weight, and then you're trying to a precarious balance where like a bunch of dishes like leading way up into the sky, even, stuff like that. But it's just, that's kind of one like little idea or like little visualization I have for how a kind of a small ego kind of deals with the larger reality of the world. It doesn't quite get absorbed into a nice self change of flow state. It'll kind of try to preserve its balance by going into a kind of a shaky balance kind of mode. But eventually the body will round it, and body and person and consciousness will round itself out. And that's what the heart chakra is all about. That's the conjunctio stage of alchemy. Then it goes up, and then, like I say, once you kind of conjunct right there and can kind of start hitting that throat chakra level, at least once you can at least hit that throat chakra level of existence, you're getting some of that triangle. And that's the triangle of God. It can, the eye of Providence. Is it the providence of God? Anyway, it's the kind of the eye of God right there at the forehead chakra. Is you can trace art symbolism pretty well to be that meaning with, Shiva's open eye, etc. So that does represent, but it doesn't represent anything like Shiva's eye. That's that would be silly. That would be silly to assume that right after you just left a truncated pyramid of you've been working on your baser nature and have conjuncted yourself pretty well, that you would somehow just super, hit the supergnosis, or super consciousness. That's it's funny how people kind of act around these spiritual traditions, because you'll get people having some, do some yoga or magic or something, and eventually you'll have somebody overstating their spiritual development or whatnot, and even start acting crazy, enlightened or whatever. It's just kind of funny, because once you say that, all you have to do is just activate your third eye, and you'll start having this wild light come into your brain, and you probably want to take, keep taking this, these drugs or whatever, man. No, I just, et cetera, et cetera. You're just gonna get this crazy burned out consciousness where you think you're hitting the flow, but you're really just babbling, going on, exuberant without substance. That's what surface level consciousness is. And a lot of people that aren't really discriminating themselves, you can use a quotation here: surface level exuberance, which and then you could substitute the word exuberance with excitement and excitatory awareness. And so you have to kind of zone in beyond the most outer excitatory stimuli to get to a nicely focused consciousness, so where you can make headway with knowledge such as this number system research. And I think we're pretty rolling here. No, not quite. But this is the bottom 4 chakras, and that cool Tetractys based pattern I discovered in 2008, which I still use, and it's the skeletonic basis of my spiritual order of self-initiation called the New Abrahadabra. So I don't really need to establish anything more than its philosophy, because every adept has to do the practices for themselves, which again isn't hard, and isn't hard to understand the basic philosophy behind, which you could sum in 1 or 2 sentences. It's the influx of the Holy Spirit upon the adept or self or person or yogi, etc. The influx of the Holy Spirit. And so when by Holy Spirit we mean the unity principle. The unity principle is the Holy Spirit. And remember, back in the first part of the series, we said that the Sanskrit word yoga, as meaning union, equals 34 in serial Sanskrit, which is the value of the word one in serial English, so that yoga equals 1. So unity equals 1. So that's really cool. Bringing it back. All right. So we'll show. Let me show this diagram again, and this shows in other form. The other one showed it clear. That's why I spent time with the other diagram. But here's this Tetractys pattern as it extends its logic down to the first level of itself into its first dot as the adept enters the Anahata chakra at the heart area, and that corresponds to tarot key number 20, correlated to planetary sun. So beautiful. And that's Kesed on the Tree of Life. And now you get into Binah. That's the 21st and 22nd tarot keys is in Binah. Okay, so after that, after Vishuddha at the throat chakra, the adept leaves the Magister Templi level of adepthood, right at the throat chakra, the adept is called the Magister Templi. So after you move past the throat chakra, you move into the Sephira of Hokmah, which is the Ajna chakra, and the adept becomes called the Magus. So you become called a Magus at the Ajna level of awareness. And the new Abrahadabra degrees, and that is to say the tarot keys associated with that level, are the numbers 23, 24, 25, 26, 27, and 28, forming a little triangle of ascension. That's the 6 degrees that the Magus rotates, churns, and distills. They're kind of earth-based, I think. It's kind of those are beyond the common tarot, so they're beyond the traditional tarot, and I had to get theoretical and expand the tarot, and I ended up doing it out to 37 keys. But I wager the number 29 is equal to Keter and represents the Holy Spirit Bindu, like the very Spirit Bindu itself. So in between, and I know 20 is the sun in the heart, so in between that, the system gets kind of slightly tentative. But I think just the numbers 21 and 22 are at the throat chakra, ending with the last tarot key, and then you get an extension of the tarot as the numbers 23, 24, 25, 26, 27, and 28 at the Ajna level, and then the number 29 is the Sahasrara level of Keter as the Holy Spirit itself, the unity of the Holy Spirit. The Ankh symbol, whereas the number 2 as Ajna was the Taijitu symbol, the left and right brain operating harmoniously in love under will. That's the whole system, so I'll let it be there. Yes, it's a little bit tentative, but I didn't really address. I listed it on this diagram, but I didn't go into it. I wasn't going to it very long, but we can do it right at the end. I was just pointing out the classic India chakra petal system can be drawn as a little subsystem on this new Abrahadabra pyramid, because it exists starting with the Anahata chakra. And let me just say that the Anahata chakra has 12 petals, which are the first 12 alphabet letters. And now the Manipura chakra are composed of the alphabet letters 13 through 22. The Svadhisthana chakra is composed of the alphabet letters 23 through 28, and the Muladhara chakra is composed of the alphabet letters 30 through 33. Now, astutely observe that there is a missing number right here between the Svadhisthana and Muladhara chakra, being the number 29. See, the Svadhisthana chakra, those petals are numbered as 23 through 28, but the Muladhara chakra's petals are numbered as 30 through 33. The number 29 is missing. And the reason for that is the 29 as Keter is the Holy Spirit itself, represents the entire Sushumna channel, the entire vertical channel that connects all the chakras together in a total unitary, wild, hitherto unknown, undiscovered, and totally fantastic, wonderful state of beingness in and of itself. That's the 29th degree, and it can be depicted all the way up in the Sahasrara chakra if you want to. It doesn't even have to be 1,000 petals as Sahasrara, as the top of the head. You can just have one alphabet letter being the recondite letter La that is found only at the end of southern India, the more southern Indian alphabets. It was carried over from Vedic Sanskrit and is not usually used in Hindi, for example. Anyway, that's secretly the 29th letter of the corrected Sanskrit alphabet, and it represents the Holy Spirit. The sound is La. All right, so and that's the apex of that pyramid. It's the apex that the Sahasrara chakra is the very apex of the pyramid, of course. That's the acute point. That's the pinpoint. When the god Thoth holds his pen as a sign of eruditeness, the cognate image is, imagine Thoth just putting his pen in some ink and just making a dot on a piece of parchment. Because he's just holding a pen like he's just going to point a piece of parchment almost. It's kind of interesting. But that very dot and point associates Thoth with Keter and the Sahasrara chakra, actually. It's the point of unity. It's the Ankh. And it's the point of magic. It's kind of like the magic dot. Kind of like the magic eye of Horus, even. But now I have to go there. I made all my points. It's this image right here. If you imagine a circle around that pyramid, that's my seal. That makes the seal of my spiritual order, and then around that seal, the letters. Just to be clear, it's Seal of the new Abrahadabra. That's the words. And then right under at the very bottom is Crowley's word for Thelema, for the law of Thelema, which, as you would have it, or sensibly, is the Greek word thelema, which has 6 letters. So it's right at the bottom of that seal. So you have seal of the new Abrahadabra, and then thelema. So there's like a gradual will burning and liberating souls. Love is the law, love under will.